So it's been about 5 or 6 months now owning the Street Triple 765 RS, and I think it's about time I give a little update on my thoughts about the bike. Now I've had some time to get used to it, particularly around the handlebar section. Of course, some of those niggle points will have faded, and some of them still remain, so I'd like to update you on those. But at the same time, I have also seen the news about the Street Triple 765 RX, which has been announced. This one's more attractive sister. There's always a more attractive sister, isn't there? With a really nice rear end frame and very beautiful top yoke with clip-ons. So this video is going to be a kind of combination of a 5-6 month update and also my thoughts on whether we should feel regret at purchasing a RS model or an R model, considering the RX has been released within a year of purchase. Okay, so just going to chuck the gear on and head out for a ride. Okay, so I've seen some comments that the sound quality was not so good in the initial review of this motorcycle, so hopefully there'll be a bit of an improvement in this one. Okay, so we've had this bike for about 5 months or so now. So this is just a little update on my review, I guess like a 5-month review of this bike, as well as some reflection on the release of the Street Triple 765 RX and whether we feel any buyer's remorse. I see traffic up ahead, so that's not a good sign. So I bought this bike at the time because it was coming towards peak summertime. It was about to start cooling down and the ideal conditions to actually get out riding and maybe make some content on the channel, but time didn't really permit me to ride it as much as I'd like, so I was barely scratched 300 kilometers, which kind of adds to my feeling of whether I feel regret at buying it when I did, because as I discussed with the salesman, looking at the schedule, Triumph was due for a new release soon. And I was right, but am I bothered? Well, they haven't released everything yet, but what they have released is the RX. So the RX, as everyone's probably seen, will be essentially a Daytona without the fairings. So they've swapped the risers and handlebars for clip-ons. It's basically the only change, really, which kind of fits with my previous experience, my styling, what I'm used to, but I very quickly have become used to this position and more comfortable with it, that I personally don't feel any regret with not holding out for the RX. I did consider, if I was to buy this bike, would I want to swap these myself, swap the top yoke and modify it to clip-ons, but actually no. I'm sure a lot of people already have, so my question to them is, do you feel any regret? Because I guess the other thing to go with it is the styling. I think for the past few years it's come pretty standard, like main frame black, rear frame black, I believe, in all color schemes. But for the new ones, the RX and the Moto2, they've painted that rear frame again. So you get the nice red rear frame with the grey paint scheme on the RX, and then you've got the green rear frame on the Moto2, which is interesting. Personally, I really like the look of the RX. The red and the grey is a colour that they've done over and over again, to be honest. But it's a very nice, it's a very nice colour scheme. You like how they got the red wheels, and you got the red radiator cowls and the red frame. It looks beautiful. So it makes me wonder whether would I want to respray this frame. But I don't know if any other colour would go with this now. But yeah, would you feel regret at having bought one of these models and converted it? Would you rather have bought the RX? Obviously, if you bought the this model a few years back, then you know it is what it is. But if you bought it in the last six months to a year, if you bought it in the last year, I wonder how you feel. Because myself, I did have a moment of like, I knew I should have waited, but then I considered things and I thought, actually no, I'm happy with my price. I'm happy with it. But a lot of people, you know, you're into more of a sports style, you know, clip-ons, or maybe you want just the newest model possible, or, you know. So yeah, I'm curious as to what other people's opinions are there. Because from what I've seen, looking at the images and the spec sheet that's been released, aside from, you know, the paintwork, they've updated the front suspension with the clip-ons and yoke. So it's really just a front end that's been replaced. Is that really exciting enough for another few years? Or do you think they need to do more to kind of justify this increase in price as a new model that's going to be on the market for another 2 years? Because the rest of the technology, unless it gets updated every year, it's like 3 years old, 4 years old already, right? So, but then again, you can always consider how fast does this technology really go out of date? And to be honest, I don't think. I mean, I'm happy with bikes from 2005, so. But I don't want to forget the main purpose of this video, which is the Moto2 and the RX. I want to know what everyone else is thinking about this, because it's interesting, it's exciting, but at the same time it's disappointing in my opinion. They've essentially made, what, the Daytona, but with no bodywork. Isn't that what everyone's been asking for? Everyone's been asking for the Daytona. So why go 90% of the way there when everyone wants that 100% and they've been asking for it for years? There is a potential possibility, right, that they might actually be announcing a new Daytona within this release. You know, it's a huge release cycle that they're doing at the moment, and wouldn't that be like the cherry on the top of the cake? You know, it's been asked for so long, this Daytona 675, 765 to be re-released. Can you imagine if it comes out now? We already have the Daytona 600. There's likely to be, in my opinion, a Daytona 800, but I think that it's like it's like a tier list. So the like the Trident 660, the Trident 800, you know, they have these tiers. That's like the lower tier of, you know, the Roadster. Like the, if you want to consider the Trident as like the budget Roadster, and then the Street Triple is the more premium Roadster, which is now actually more just, you know, just as affordable, then could we be having a Daytona 600, 660, and then a Daytona 800, and then maybe a Daytona 765 R, RR, RS, RX? You know, they could release a whole range of Daytonas again on the 765 model range, just using RX, RX, etc. I think that's something they could actually be considering, because with the RX and the Moto2, they've basically announced the Daytona with no bodywork. So why not just stick some bodywork on it? In my opinion, I think Triumph's business model at the moment is kind of about reusing, they're making the most of platforms. You know, the 660 platform, 3 models on one platform, the 800s now. You know, there's a lot of combining features and models to make the most of what they already have, the knowledge and experience they already have to make these new models. And then you got the 660s, you got the 800s, and then you've got the Street Triple 765s, and that range is also kind of mixing in some ways with the 800 series because of the common casing and stuff like that. But there's nothing stopping them from just slapping on some fairings on the RX, right? It's just a fairing kit at this point. So considering that business practice of minimizing the re-engineering of all these different models and reusing or using the same platform to develop multiple models just to develop some fairings, I think Triumph would be silly if they didn't. So I think that's something we're definitely going to see coming up in this release. Okay, so I had a bit of a camera malfunction, so just to round that off and summarize. For anyone that had a Street Triple 765 RS that you bought recently within the last year, let's say, how are you feeling seeing this news now, especially if you are interested in having the clip-ons or maybe modifying that yourself? If you've already modified one yourself, how do you feel as well? Because you've gone through all this work to do that, and now you actually have something a bit more special. It's a bit more your own than just buying it like that, right? So how do you feel? Personally, if I was in your shoes and I modified it myself, I would be happier with that than buying the RX or the Moto2. What about specifications? This is a new model that's likely to be on the market for another 2-3 years, and the only upgrade they've given us is a new front suspension, change of the top yoke, and some clip-ons. Now it looks beautiful, but in terms of advancements, we're still running on old technology, right? It's been out for a few years, and we're going to continue running on for another couple more years. And the suspension itself, yes, it's an upgrade, but it's not as much of an upgrade as the Speed Triple 1200 RX. I think that's also got a much more advanced suspension setup as well. So do you think that they've done enough for this to be the Street Triple 765 RX and Moto2, or do you think they should have done more? And lastly, with them being 90% of the way to essentially making a new Daytona on the Street Triple platform, what do you think the chances are that they might announce a new Daytona on that Street Triple platform? Maybe under the name Daytona R, RS, RX, just to set it apart from the Daytona 660 and the 800s that we might get in the future, or may even be within these announcements. At this point, it's essentially just a fairing kit. And with the amount of interest and the amount that people ask for it and the little amount of work that they actually need to do this, I think it's a no-brainer. And I'm going to cross my fingers and hope they will get an announcement. Okay, so that's it for my thoughts on the RX and the Moto2 for the time being. This video is going to be extended to continue my update review of the RS. We'll also see some of the countryside around here in Japan. So if you do want to keep watching, please do so. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. So my thoughts on this bike now after 5 months, and this is probably the most interesting ride that I've been on for it. I should probably pay attention to the roads a bit more. I feel like I don't have to be in 4th gear right now. I could easily be in 3rd, but I'm just keeping the RPM under control, you know, still in the braking period. But it's very smooth, I have to say. This bike, riding this bike is very smooth. So, starting now as we've just come to a stop, one thing people commented on is sharpness of the brakes. At first I thought it was shocking and surprisingly sharp, But actually, as I've been riding it, you know, the brakes bed in, you get used to it. They're definitely not dangerous, I feel, so not dangerous. And actually, when you use both brakes together, as you should, you know, you want to come to a steady stop like you learn when you learn how to ride a bike. Your emergency stop, you're on the front and you're on the rear. This bike comes to a stop very smoothly, with very little dive on the front, which allows you to retain traction, and you don't feel like it's going to slip at all. I was really surprised at how stable this bike was when I've had to perform a maneuver somewhat like that once or twice. No fear of it feeling like it's going to slip or lock up a wheel or anything, or even go into an endo. It's so stable. The geometry is really well set up. The geometry is really well set up, really well balanced. I'm really impressed with the braking performance on this bike. The clocks, as I mentioned, I haven't been able to find the odometer on this bike. Aside from when you switch on the engine and switch off the engine, or say not the engine but the clocks themselves, when you switch them on and off, that's the only time I've actually seen an actual display of the odometer besides the display of the service interval, which is a little bit irritating. Like it's unusual because I'm used to it always being very visible, but it is what it is. It's not so critical really, but it's good to have the range always displayed at the top. I'm not used to that coming from older, more analog bikes. Yeah, there's some nice things that I get used to with having this technology. As for comfort, I'm currently wearing a slightly thicker pair of trousers than I usually wear. Kind of not fleece lined, but slightly thicker lined trousers for colder months. And I mentioned before about having a line digging into my leg from the seat. Now I can feel that line right now, but it's not painful. So I think it's a gear issue as well. So if I was wearing full gear, full trousers as well, I probably am not going to notice it. But if you're someone that likes to go around wearing shorts or tights, then you may notice the edge of the seat is quite hard, and you'll dig in. Ooh, aren't we lucky? We get to sit in front of a train. Or you do. My glasses are fogged up. Let's, where is it coming from? From the right? So in Japan, there's a lot of culture for like customizing not just cars and bikes, but trucks as well. So you see this one has like eyes decorating the window. You'll see that kind of stuff with you'll see that kind of stuff with all sorts of trucks. Much more decorative LEDs and everything. And Bozozuko, the really colorful LED custom bikes that you see, the gangs. Honestly, you'll see them everywhere. A lot of them are in not good condition, and they're noisy buggers. The culture here is like, they do not respect the noise levels. Anyway, back to this bike. So, in terms of handling geometry, they've got that really well balanced braking. Now for cornering, honestly, I mean, you'll see these roads that I've ridden currently. I'm only going, well, this is 60 kilometers an hour, 50 to 60 kilometers an hour, so 40 miles an hour, something like that. It's going to be a challenge to find some roads that you can really lean on around here. So it's actually something that I've not had the experience of, but sometimes you have a little, you know, little weave on the road, and I feel like I've adjusted to these handlebars as opposed to the clip-ons, and it's definitely a lot more comfortable than I remember, even though I remember not being uncomfortable, I do remember after a couple of long hours, traveling from one place to another, I do get off and I stretch, and it's not like I'm in pain, but you need that stretch. Whereas this, I don't really feel any level of discomfort at all. I'm basically sat upright. I'm reaching forward to the handlebars. I'm not leaning on my wrists. Again, even though I didn't really have any trouble with my wrists, it's just as I'm getting older, I do get, back trouble and things like that, and I just feel no discomfort with this at all, and I can't see it becoming uncomfortable. And bearing in mind that when I was riding the other bike, it's like 6 years ago, I was more at the gym most days. I was in better shape, more muscle, more core strength. So even then, I had some level of discomfort on sports bikes. So I can definitely understand why people go for a motorcycle more like this as they get older. And it's still fun. It definitely has the oomph. You can see I'm changing my gears quite quickly as I'm pulling off. That's because I'm gonna get 2-speed in first or second within seconds, and it's gonna be a bit noisy. And it's also just fun to go through gears, isn't it? I don't need to go super fast to feel like going through gears is fun. Hopefully we'll get some windies in a minute. There was another point I briefly mentioned, which was the quickshifter. It's something that I'd never used before, didn't really know how to use, and I had some comments saying as well, like, the buttery smooth, you have to just give it a little bit more, have to open the throttle a little bit more. Over a certain RPM is going to be smooth to go through the gear changes. We don't have to drop the throttle at all. So, as an example, that was very smooth. That was just clicking into fourth. No drop in the throttle, perfect. So yeah, it's I don't really use it, but when I remember I've got it, I can give it a little try, and yeah, very smooth. I've seen a lot of people have trouble going from second to third, but I personally have not had any issues with that. So let's actually give that a try now, shall we? Let's go into second, open the throttle. Oh, very smooth. Second to third, very smooth. Yep. So I do hear a small rattle all the time, and it does make me wonder whether the valve clearances are a bit stiff, as well as the fact that sometimes when it's warm after I've ridden it and I go to start again, it doesn't like to start straight off the button. It does it does need the throttle to be opened a little bit for it to actually start. So maybe it needs the valve clearance checking at its first interval. So this. But aside from that, no problems with power delivery. And we get that clicking on the brakes with the retainer down there just clicking through. I believe it's just the spring retainer on the brake pads. That may lessen as it warms up. So in terms of fuel mileage for this bike, I do not think it's great. I have to fill up with high op, or I was advised to. I don't know if that's what everyone does with this bike. If you do, let me know in the comments down below. If you don't, let me know how it goes. The purpose of high op, from my understanding, is to help reduce misfires. The gas combusting too soon in the cylinder as it heats up under compression. You don't want that to happen before the actual ignition event is supposed to occur. Not really. So that's my understanding of why we use high op. Yeah, let me know if you also were advised the same and what your experience is with a high op or otherwise is. Mirrors, I actually really like these. I don't need them wide out. I can have them like this, and I can see just fine as well. Where are we going? Should we go straight? We'll go left. We'll go left wherever they're going. I don't know where they're going. Yeah, so mirrors. I feel like I can actually see really well around my elbows, even on the tucked in position. And that's what everyone does here for filtering. Definitely can see more with them rotated outwards, but it's not really necessary. I don't really have a preference. So we found ourselves on a highway, which I didn't actually want to do. So we'll probably come off of here in a minute. I don't want to accidentally find my way onto a toll road because I don't have my toll card with me. So maybe we'll just come off here, I guess. I don't know where this is. I really don't know the roads around here at all. So I'm taking some risks. Just gonna go left. I have no idea where that is, but I think we've come from there, so shouldn't get lost. No idea what that guy is doing. Interesting. So fuel mileage. So we're filling it with high octane, a bit more expensive than normal gasoline. And how about the fuel mileage? Well, I've just filled this bike up to full, and before you come out, I had 195 kilometers on the clock. It went up to 200 and something. Oh, this is actually a nice... Ooh. Sorry, I was surprised by that corner. I wasn't expecting that. As I said, I've not been here before. I'm not going to go crazy with the corners and bends that I'm not familiar with. So, but that was a nice surprise. Very small, nice surprise. Might have to pull up Google Maps and see where I am. Add that to add that to my very small list of fun roads or sections of road. What I found is usually if I go out for about 3 rides on this bike, maybe if I go over to Himeji, the local city, once, maybe I'll go down to the bike shop twice, I'm already due to fill up again. So really, it's not good fuel mileage at all. In my experience, but that might be because I'm finding myself in a lot of traffic. I'm rarely on highways for too long unless it's going to Himeji, so maybe I'll lose most of my mileage in the cities. So because I don't know where I am, and I typically go by the nickname Captain Lost, we can really continue to be lost and see if we can find our way home just by thinking in that direction. I have no idea if that's even the correct direction. I'm gonna have to just try and interpret these road signs. So Miki, I believe, is north. Oh no, is north of where I live. So I guess I should head this way, heading south. So as I've been riding and I've been sliding and I'm gripping, I've started to feel that the edge of that seat in my legs again. I have slid down mostly towards the front, so maybe it's because of the high seat. It puts you into kind of a tipped position, but then you're relaxed on your wrists, right? So because you're kind of relaxed on your wrists, it relies on you biting in with your knees, which I wasn't expecting to need to do, which seems to have resulted in me slipping forward. And then I feel the digging in. Okay, so after a little while and some braking, I realized that I'd slidden towards the tank and I started feeling the seat digging into my legs again. So actually, what I think is happening is because it's a more upright position, but the rear of the frame is still quite tipped on the RS, it kind of encourages you to slip in unless you get into a real rider position. So if you're in a more sat up, kind of comfortable position, commuting position, and you're on one of these and you're braking, I wonder if you have the same experience of like slipping into the tank, and then that's when you start to feel the seat digging in. Let me know if you also experienced that. If you typically ride it in a more of a tucked in position, then I ask you to just give it a try for a little bit. Just sit upright and see if you experience the same thing that I'm referring to. Tell me it's not just me. Grapes. There's some grape picking over here. So I'm not sure if you can notice it, but these roads, I mean, they're better than a lot of roads in England, but these are kind of bumpy. I think in a car maybe you would not notice it so much, but on a bike, especially the RS, it's kind of made more for the track, right? So it's a bit stiffer. Definitely do notice these bumps, and maybe that's something that I should adjust the suspension for, because I'm not really racing it on track. So you could probably do with like a, you know, more of a road setup. So I may consider that in the future. I've been having a thought recently. This the windshield I have on the front, I mean, it's really not a windshield, it really isn't, but I've been thinking that I want to take it off and put the original shield on, because I'm actually not the biggest fan of this windshield. I much prefer, I just like the styling of the original one, so I might swap them over.